Hi everyone, welcome to my craft room. I thought for today's video I would cover something which is a question I'm asked about all the time, and that is, where do I get my inspiration for projects? There's all kinds of places I get inspiration from, things I might see in a magazine which gives me an idea for a colour scheme, to something that I see somebody else make that inspires me, to training courses I go on and all sorts of other things. But one of my greatest sources of inspiration is something that you've all got as well, and that is the Stampin' Up catalogue. If you don't have a Stampin' Up catalogue and would like one, then do contact me and I'm happy to let you have one. But for today I'm going to show you where I got some inspiration from the January to June mini catalogue. We used to call this the Spring and Summer catalogue. And I'm looking at page 24 at the Peaceful Poppies suite. There's all kinds of lovely goodies in this suite of products. And I absolutely love them. If you've been coming to my classes this year, you'll know just how often I use these. And I thought for today I would take this project here as my inspiration. So the first thing I've done is I've actually created my own card from the card that's in the catalogue. So that's something that of course you can do. You can just literally copy what's in there. To do that, I've used the Painted Poppies set, which has got so many beautiful florals on it, and I've also used the Peaceful Moments set for the words. And there are dies here which coordinate with the stamps, and there's this really sweet little die cut and coloured already for you element of a poppy here, and that's from the Poppy Elements kit. So on the opposite page, page 25, you can see these things. Here are the stamp sets and the dies, and these are the poppies elements. In there are all kinds of bits and pieces. There are coloured poppies, there are poppies on vellum that you can either use as they are or colour yourself. There are poppies on watercolour paper that you can colour yourself, and there are some embossed shapes on black card, which is where this banner came from here. So I don't know if you can see, this has got an embossed outline round it, and then I've heat embossed the sentiment in white here. So that's my copy of the catalogue. I didn't mention there's some sequins here as well. So the first thing that I often do is copy the catalogue and then almost copy the catalogue. So this is very nearly the same, except instead of a single poppy, I've used a group of poppies. These are also in the Poppy Elements pack, so it's in the same one as those. And I've just added a thank you instead of a congratulations, so it's very nearly the same. And then instead of the blue paper underneath here, I've just used some paper from exactly the same pack, which is the Painted Poppies paper pack, but a different pattern. So then I moved on from that one, and instead of the rectangular banner, I used a different shape. I've used a circle here, I've used a different sentiment there, and I've changed the shapes of the banners a little bit here. But again, I've used an element from the Poppies Elements set. I've still got the sequins on here. And then there's another one that's very similar here, except that's a birthday one. I've used different papers here. But essentially I got 5 cards simply from that one card that was in the catalogue. So those are my 4. And then the 5th one is the one that I copied from the catalogue. So that is one way of using the catalogue for inspiration. So one of those was a copy and 4 are inspired by. The next thing that I often do is I turn a card I've made into a sketch, or a card I've seen into a sketch. I have a little book here and I keep my card sketches in, and they're kind of simplified plans with shapes and indications as to where I might put a sentiment. And I have a little book here, and every time I see a card that I really like, I turn it into a sketch. So if I was going to turn this card into a sketch, find my pen, there's my pen. I normally start by drawing the shape of the card base. I could use a ruler, but I'm not. And then I indicate any layers. So this one has got one layer on top of the card base. And then I have a look at the elements that are on top of that layer, and I start at the front and I work back with my sketching. So I can see that here there is an element. Then we've got a banner, and then we've got another piece here, and then we've got something else here. I kind of just do a swoopy shape there. And I'm not copying it exactly, but I'm just giving an indication. So that gives me a kind of a feel for some of the shapes that are in that card. And what I'll do from this is I'll be inspired to then go and create something that's completely different again. So that's the sketch that I'm going to be working from. Let's see if I can leave that up in the corner for you. Hopefully that's still in shot so you can see that. Yeah, I think you can. And then I'm going to bring in some completely different stamps. So what I've got here is my new favourite stamp set, Positive Thoughts. Sending positive thoughts and feel good wishes seems to be a perfect sentiment for so many different occasions. And I really like these kind of, I don't know, they're almost like photographic stamps. This one looks a little bit like a pressed flower. They've also got a sort of a watercolour feel to them. I really like that Positive Thoughts stamp set. So I've pulled out some of the stamps from that. And I've got some of my favourite colours here to work with. I've got Highland Heather, So Saffron and Mint Macaron for my colours. I've got an embossed layer which I've already done in the Big Shot using the new Ornate Floral embossing folder. It's absolutely beautiful. This is going to be in the new annual catalogue, but we can actually get it now, and it's beautiful. It's got this tiny little all over flower print. It doesn't matter which way round you have it, it works always. Really beautiful. So I've pre-embossed that in my Big Shot, and you are going to want the blue embossing plate for that, because these folders now are not made by Sizzix, and so we need a plate that's just a little bit thicker to use with the 3D embossing folders that are now in the catalogue. So that's a good one to use. You can make up the extra thickness with shims if you need to, which I used to do, but actually I find this is so much more convenient. So that's the embossing. And then I've got some bits and pieces here. I've got a card base made from So Saffron card just here, and I'm going to first of all attach my card layer to it. I'm using Tombow because when I put this down you'll see that I can actually slide it a little bit to get it nice and straight. There we go. That's beautifully straight. And then I've got a white layer here which is going to sit on the front there. So let's work on that white layer now. Now I know I want to put a banner in the front there. You can, I don't move that too much, there we go. You can see I've got a banner here. Now I changed things around a little bit. Instead of having a banner with a longer piece of paper, I've decided to use a banner with a wider piece of paper like that. And I want to see where this is going to fit on here so I can do some stamping that will show behind it. And I'm going to just use my pencil and very lightly just mark where that will go, just to give me a guideline. I can rub that out easily later. There we go. So here we go. So I've made my white layer smaller than this white layer. These are my banners, but I've actually decided to go with a wider, shorter banner with the banner ends cut into both pieces, both the card and the paper. And then here where I use die cut shapes, I'm going to have some stamped shapes instead. So I'll take my Mint Macaron ink, and I've got the fern shape from the stamp set here. And this isn't very wide. I don't want the whole width of that stamp, so I'm actually just going to ink up about that much just by not putting the whole thing onto the stamp pad like that. There we go. And this area here is going to be covered by my banner, so this can be ugly, it won't matter at all. So partially inking up the stamp again. Let's have a bit more fern going out that side. Then I'm going to do some for the bottom out here. And just ink that a little bit more. One more here. About like that. There we go. So that's my fern. Then I'm going to stamp the words on my banner, and I am using this lovely sentiment, sending positive thoughts and feel good wishes. There's so many people that could be appropriate for. So because I've got grid paper under here, I can line that up and get it completely straight. And stamp my words. There we go. And I used Highland Heather ink for that. I'm not sure that I said that. Then I'm going to pop that onto my patterned paper. This is from the Pressed Petals pack here. It's got pressed flowers on one side, but I'm using this Hessian side. And I'm going to stick the two pieces together, and then I'm going to cut my flag ends in it. So again, I'm using Tombow glue. That means I can put this down and then slide it if I need to get it absolutely straight. Right, time for the flag ends. Again, I use my grid paper here to mark. I want to know where the center point of the short ends is. So in the center of my grid paper is a cross. It happens to go down to the letter 8. So if I put this down on my grid paper, let's make sure you can see that. And then I make sure that either side of the 8 is the same amount. So here I've got 3/4 of an inch that way and 3/4 of an inch that way. So I know the 8 is marking the center point, and I'm just going to make a little indentation with my scissors and then do the same the other side. That will help me get my banner nice and straight and symmetrical. So I always cut flag ends by cutting into the center first. And I do both ends first because it's easy for me to remember how far in I cut. And then I cut from the bottom corners into that point. So one in there, and one in there. And that is my flag end. Not easy to see. Let's put it on something coloured. There we go. And then I'll do the other side. Just the same from the ends into the centre where I made that cut. There we go. And that gives me a nice symmetrical banner. Right. So I'm also decided I'm going to add some flowers to this. I think I want a little bit of yellow on there just to pick up the yellow that's on my card base here. So I've got the flower image from the same Positive Thoughts stamp set, and I'm going to remember that this area within those two pencil lines is not going to show, so I'm going to make sure I do my stamping outside of that. Let's do a little bit there, a bit below there, and a bit up there. There we go. Right, I'm going to put my banner on now with dimensionals, but it will be easier to put the glue on the back of this if I haven't got anything else stuck on there first. So let's keep this flat and stick it on, and then I'm going to add my dimensional additions. If I'm gluing something onto an embossed piece that's quite textured, I always add a little bit more glue than usual because the debossed areas on here won't make contact with this. So I want to make sure that there is plenty of glue on the areas that are going to make contact. There we go. So on the back of my banner, I'm going to put some dimensionals. I never skimp on dimensionals. They're not very expensive, and I would much rather put a couple of extra ones on there than find that my banner is going to sag in the middle. Maybe it's going to get sent through the post and get pressure put on it in the postal system. And I don't want it to arrive and not look exactly as I had hoped. So I always add plenty of dimensionals. Okay, so I know where I'm going to put that. Before I do, I'm just going to rub out those pencil lines. I always use a 2B pencil. I'm in the UK. They're probably called something different in other countries, but it's a soft pencil anyway, which means that it rubs out very easily. Right, so my banner is going to sit on there. like that. And then I'm going to bring in just a couple of other elements which I have stamped and cut in advance, because you probably didn't want to watch me cutting things out. So I've got another one of those yellow flowers, and I've stamped a butterfly using Highland Heather ink. I haven't cut out his antennae. That was a job too far even for me, and I love to fussy cut. But I can add those on afterwards, or I can add them on now if I want to by stamping him on here, and then using the antennae from the stamped image, which will show under there. I haven't done that this time because I've stuck this down. I'm going to draw them on by hand, and I can just audition these pieces here and see what I want to put where. Yeah, I think that's the way I'm going to go. So I'm going to put this flower on here. I'm going to curl it a little bit with my bone folder first, just to make those petals stand out a little bit. I'm curling some up and some down. And yeah, I'm going to stick it on there, I think. Now this part here is kind of sagging because this one is on dimensional, so I want to support the underside of this one where it is on the white card. Where it sticks on top of the banner, I don't want dimensionals, otherwise that will be on a tilt because I've already got a layer of dimensionals underneath there. So I'm going to put dimensionals on one side and just use my liquid glue on the other. Nearly time for a new tube of glue. There we go. So that now sits nice and flat. And I'm just going to bend the butterfly by putting my thumbnail either side of the body and lifting up the wings. And that gives me a flat part of its body there. And I'm just going to pop that on there. I'm going to grab my marker to give it some antennae. I thought I'd got everything out, but I forgot my marker. So this is a Stampin' Right marker, which is the water-based markers, and I've used the fine tip for this. It's got a fine band on the barrel as against the wide band, which is the end with the brush tip. So I just want a fine tip for this, and I'm just going to draw in a couple of antennae without thinking too much about it. There we go. And then I think all it needs are perhaps a few little pearls. So let's pop some of those on. No, I'm going to use little ones, I think. Not a big one. Pop a little one there on the butterfly. You see how that just brings it to being much more of a focal point. And perhaps 3 in here, I think. There we go. Right, for the inside, I've got another piece of card. I don't think I'm going to stamp words inside. I think I probably just need a flower and a butterfly. I always like to stamp off the edge for something like this. It somehow just seems to look better than constantly having to keep everything inside the edges of that piece of card. Looks a little bit more natural somehow. And we'll pop a butterfly, I think, up there. There we go. And again, he's slightly off the edge. And then I'll just pop this inside the card. And then I'll pull in the sketch and we'll have a look at how that sketch inspired this card. So here we go. I've got my card base with a layer, and I actually I put 2 layers on. I've got a banner across there. I've got an element here, which is my flower, but then I did also add a butterfly in the opposite corner. And then here we had some bits and pieces in the background, which again I've done here. And so that is how I got from this poppy card, which I just copied from the catalogue, to this flower card. Bit of inspiration, that's all. Converting that one to a sketch and then converting the sketch to a card using completely different colours and stamps, and it just looks like a completely different card. But really all I did was copy the catalogue, and there it is. So you could do that with all these, and if you page through your catalogue you will see that there are endless samples of things that you could convert to sketches and then turn into cards. So have a look at your catalogue. Don't just have a look at all the goodies that you could be buying, although please do that as well, but do have a look at the designs. There's much more you can do with these than simply copying them. As always, if you've got any questions, do please let me know, and I'll see you again in my craft room soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.